Northampton just had too much for a young Munster side in blustery conditions at Franklin's Gardens. My name is Mark, let's talk rugby. Munster on the front foot in the opening few minutes. We've got some big carries by the likes of Hodnett, and Peter Romani gets them close to the line. They then go over, but some really good Northampton defence manages to keep them up off the ground over that line, and it's a dropout. Then they're able to kick clear, and it takes a touch off Crowley as it drops. I think he maybe tried to control it with his foot, but kind of loses, the flight of the ball in the wind. It was very, very windy. Then he's got to scramble a clear, and it's a 5 metre line out to Northampton because that touch meant that he took it back into the 22 and he kicked it out in the full. Now Munster's line is under siege. Munster defence though managed to push them back out to 15 metres, but Northampton strike. Dingwall finds O'Dendell, and then he offloads to Ram, who goes over to score, converted by Smith for 7-0. Just a really nice move there from Northampton. They were getting pushed back, and you often see with teams when that's happening, when they're kind of retreating, even when they're on the attack, that the alignment kind of goes out of whack. But for them, they were everyone was in the right spot, all ran nice hard lines as well, and just sliced open that Munster defence. Munster then looked to respond as they come forward. Northampton in at the side, and Munster kick the penalty to the corner. Munster then go to the tail, and Scanlon comes on the loop in set move there. He pops it inside for a back who comes on a hard line as well, but Northampton are wise to it. They stop it, and then they turn the ball over. And again, just Northampton, the defence was excellent today, and then when they got the chances on attack as well, just the more clinical of the two sides. Munster then have another chance after poor clearance kick. They probe the Northampton defence on the on one side before coming back in field, and then O'Brien goes over. I think it was Nankivell, maybe just gives him a short pass, and it goes between two defenders over to score beside the post. Crowley converts for 7-all, and that was a decent bit of play from Munster. I don't think their attack hasn't fired as well as it had last year, but we saw moments of it in this game. We've seen moments of it also this season. It just feels like that they haven't produced maybe an 80-minute performance really this season. Then James taps a penalty, I think it was like in the 22 or something, and he darts through a hole before kicking it through. It beats everyone into touch, but now Munster have a difficult defensive 5 metre line out, and it's not straight. Northampton opt for the line out themselves, but as they attack off that, Coombs gets over the ball to win a penalty. Munster then win a scrum penalty, and that allows them to go up the line. And Munster scrum early on was decent, but then kind of as they tired, Northampton really did get on top in that area, and Munster really did not want to have any scrums at all. And once they got the ball in, from especially in the second half, they were just trying to get the ball out as quickly as possible because they knew a penalty was coming if they didn't. But in the first half, at least, they had some decent scrums on their side. But then Stephen Archer, I think, had to play the whole game, and I can't remember the name of the guy on the bench, but they had a young tight head on the bench, so didn't want to bring him on. But for me, it's like, well, give the guy the last kind of 5 or 10 minutes just to kind of cut his teeth, at this level anyway. If your scrum's getting destroyed, why not just throw the dice and put a young lad on? But I suppose they don't want to wreck his confidence maybe, but there's a reason why I'm not a coach. Anyway, from here then, let me find where I am in my notes actually. So Coles then coming into side, Munster get a penalty. They move it from the line out after that, and then they win another penalty there. kick it to the corner. They claim the line out. Then they go to pick and goes and 1 out runners as well. And, you know, they're working their way closer to the line. Then they go a little bit wider, and Haley snipes over to score, converted for 14 points to 7. So, you know, Munster, I think another case where their attack paid off for them. They kind of sucked in that defence, and then once they got out wide, they had too many numbers really, and Haley was just able to snipe over as the defence that was there was trying to drift to cover the players that Munster had out wide. So it's converted then for 14 points to 7. Munster attack off a scrum, and they get it wide where Zebo, nice run from him. He combines with O'Brien, who cuts back inside, but the move breaks down a couple of phases later with a knock on, and you know, kind of from this point on, Munster's accuracy wasn't really there, and the cutting edge kind of left them as well. Northampton then tried to break, but the accuracy for them at this point isn't there, but in the second half it really was. And you know, the ball goes to ground, but then it's Northampton win the penalty off the scrum, and then another penalty at the line out as well. Munster then go up to disrupt the line out well, but there's a knock on, and it's a scrum to Northampton. Northampton then just slice Munster open once again. They pin in the Munster defence in the centre. Then they go wider, and Freeman comes in off his wing, comes around a corner and through a gap and over to score. Really well worked set piece try, converted for 14 all. Munster then they break down the left from their own 22, and it's actually second row Ahern who's on the break, and then he kicks it ahead, and Northampton counter, and it's actually Hooker Langdon who was covering back, and then he makes a break up the field as well. Like, it was a really great passage of play. Munster then get over the ball to win a penalty, but it really did show like the ambition of both teams there to have, you know, a second row forward and then a front row forward, both making you know, breaks that could have led to scores for their teams. Halftime is 14 all. Into the second half then, Northampton with a long kick gets caught in the wind. Hurley again kind of does something similar to Crowley, where he gets a touch on it, I think this time with his hand, and then he has to keep his kick in play, and leads to a Northampton scrum on the edge of the 22 over in the tram lines. They then win a penalty on the scrum and go to the corner, but then a big play by Munster as they compete at the front of the line out. Peter O'Mahony nicks it, and they're able to clear it. Then shortly after that, Ty Byrne gets over the ball and wins a penalty, and it felt like big moments there because, you know, Munster really were under a lot of pressure, and they were able to, you know, those two big moments were able to give them some respite and give them a chance to get on the front foot. But really, you know, Munster didn't have much to sustained pressure in the Northampton half, you know, because for my money, Northampton were the better team in that second half, and Munster, they did well to hang on in there, but you need to offer a bit more than that, you know, if you're going to win games like this. So Munster go up the line, then the line out malfunctions, and it's an overthrow, and Northampton are able to run it clear. And again, you know, it's just those little things where getting your accuracy in such an important line out, you know, get your accuracy right, retain the ball, and then go from there. But they weren't able to, and it's just, you know, although it looks like he's just overthrown the ball and it's a mistake, it's I think testament to the pressure that Northampton were applying all over the park. You know, that Munster weren't able to get some of the basics right. Northampton then, they just scored an absolutely brilliant try from a line out on their own 22. They put it through the hands, and Smith puts Slight home through a gap. Munster struggling to get back to cover, and then Hendy finishes in the corner. Converge is missed from out wide, but it's 19-14, and it feels, even though it's only 5 points, it feels like, a big job now for Munster to get back into this, because they haven't offered that much in attack, and that's the way it is when you're under pressure and you're having to defend, and then finally the opposition score, then you've got to be able to come forward and offer something. And I think it was just a little bit beyond Munster's ability today, but they gave it a go, and they have to be given credit for that as well. Like, the heads didn't drop. They attack from a retreating scrum. O'Donoghue, I thought, did really well at the back there on an 8, just to get that ball out, under his feet, with the rest of his pack coming in on top of him. And then he gets to Byrne carries, and then they switch it out to the right wing. They get into the 22, but then Courtney Laws, who I thought was immense today, gets over the ball and turns it over for Northampton. Munster then pinged for offside, and Northampton with a chance to go 2 scores clear. I think it was actually Byrne who was offside there as well. And then on a calm day, you're thinking this kick is a gimme, and it's probably going to seal the win, again, just because of how tight the game was. But the win just makes the kick hugely difficult. And then Finn Smith just completely scuffs the kick, and it goes low, flat, and very, very wide. And he looks down. I can't remember who it was that was holding the ball, but he looked down at them as if it was their fault, but I don't think so. I just think it was a terrible kick. Munster then on the attack, but poor pass goes to ground. I think it might have been from Joey Carberry who come on in the centres. I'm not, don't quote me on that, but I think it might have been from him. Goes to ground. Northampton then are able to counter from that, and then they work it to out to Mendy on that right wing. He steps Crowley and then beats Zebo to go over in the corner, and you're thinking that try probably wins it at that stage, because there's maybe 5 minutes left on the clock, and 10 points was a lot. Conversion is missed for 24-14. Munster then win a penalty at the restart, and they go to the corner, and you just know they've got to score here to have any chance at all of a famous comeback. Northampton halt them all initially, and then they forced a knock-on from Byrne as Munster tried to move it. Northampton then see out the remaining few minutes. 24-14 is the full-time score. Northampton deservedly into the quarter-final, and Munster can have no complaints. So let's have a look at the stats from the game. Again, I'll just say this, I've said it before, all the other games are covered as well this weekend. These stats on the official website, for some reason, they're not all of them are updated properly. So some of them are going to be incorrect, and apologies for that. Some of them will be very obviously incorrect as well. But let's see here. So tries, first of all, 4 tries to 2 in favour of Northampton. Again, Northampton just the more incisive of the two teams, really took their chances well. Munster, in fairness, they created, the tries they did get, they took well. It's just that they couldn't create enough, and the other, opportunities that they took as well, that they created as well, the accuracy just wasn't there. On to attack then, meters made 632 to 406. Again, just shows you that Northampton really were kind of, on top in terms of going forward with the ball. Clean breaks 12 to 8, and defenders beaten 38 to 26. Again, just points to them being the more incisive of the two. Passes 128 to 191. So Munster with plenty of passes, but not really getting the ground that they would like out of that. Territory then 45% to 55, but again, it felt like Munster at times when they had the ball in that Northampton half, it was kind of, it was plodding, and they were kind of moving the ball just to almost to move it away from the point of contact, rather than, with any kind of real sharpness to it. Whereas Northampton, when they got on the ball, you could feel that the pace lifted a little bit, especially on turnover. And you could see that the Munster defence, there was always the chance there that a gap would be found, really, I felt. Defence then 179 tackles, from Northampton, 112 from Munster. And tackle success, 87% from Northampton, which is pretty respectable. 75 from Munster, not really great at this level, honestly. Turnovers won, 8 from Northampton. Talked about that Laws turnover. Then they got the turnover as well, where they held Munster up over the line, and a few others too. Munster with some decent turnovers too. We had Peter O'Mahony, Coombs, and especially Byrne in there, winning turnovers for them, and probably keeping the scoreline as close as it was in the end. Lineouts won then 11 for Northampton. And 11 per Munster as well. Lineout success, 92% from Northampton is excellent. 79 from Munster, not so good. And we talked about that one where they had that chance at the end to maybe get themselves into a decent position, and they overthrew it. And then lineout steals. This is one of these stats that it's wrong on this website. It's got to be, because it says 0-0 on lineout steals. And I know for a fact that each of the teams, got at least one steal in there. There was Peter O'Mahony one at the 5 meters, and then Northampton stole a Munster one as well. But Munster won on the attack on the edge of the 22. So for whatever reason, that stat is always wrong on the official website. Scrums won then 5-7, 100% for Northampton, 88% for Munster. Doesn't really tell the tale that in that second half, the Munster ones that they won, it was still poor ball because their pack were all going backwards. Kicking then, kicks and play, or kicks from hand, 22-23. Kicks meters made, 670 to 708, so pretty close in that regard. Kicks retained then, 2 for Northampton, 4 from Munster, but even the kicks retained from Munster didn't really sometimes you see them and it'll set up a decent position for them to launch an attack from. Didn't really happen too much for them today. The breakdown then, stats not in for that yet. So we'll skip that, I guess. And then discipline, penalties conceded, 11 for Northampton, 7 for Munster. So Munster staying on the right side of the referee, but the penalties that they got, even though they were going up the line from most of them, well, pretty much all of them, they didn't really make the most of them when they got into position either. But again, that's full credit to Northampton. So what about the two teams from here? So Munster, they're out at the round of 16. In fairness, before the game, a lot of people thought that it would be a tough ask for them to go there against a team that already turned them over in Thomond Park earlier on in the pool stages. Munster, they've got an injury list, and they had like a bug or something going through the camp as well. So great effort today from them. But even with everybody available, I think it would have still been a tough ask to go there and beat an Northampton side that are in pretty decent form in the Premiership, top of the table there. Munster beginning to come into a little bit of form themselves, but it doesn't feel like they have that momentum that they had last year, and that took them ultimately to the URC title. That they're not at that level. And I've talked about it before earlier on the season, that Munster really are struggling in the second half to have any real impact on the scoreboard. And when it was halftime 14-0, I thought Munster are not going to win this, because they haven't been winning second halves, and especially the final quarter where you knew it was going to be a tight game, and Munster potentially would have had to come up with a score to win it. And I just felt like, based on what had gone on for the rest of the season, that they haven't got that in them. But listen, it's a young Munster side. And there's some young guys that we, in the team, but also young guys that we didn't see today as well. The likes of Gleeson and Quinn, etc., who are to come into this side. And I think for Munster to be serious contenders in this competition, it's at least, obviously next season is the next time that they have the chance, but we might see them a little bit more on in their development next year, but I think it's probably going to be another 2 or 3 years, honestly, with the development that's going on at the moment, for them to kind of step up to that level. By then you would expect the likes of a Dogbo, Quinn, Gleeson, etc. to be established names in the Munster pack, and for the others, the likes of Hodnett, Coombs, etc., to have kind of progressed themselves too, and kind of becoming better players. So so for Munster, I don't think it's any embarrassment, especially after the start they had in the pool as well, to get to this stage. Northampton, really well deserved win for them. The fact that they were able to kind of boss the scrum, it's always good to have that solid set piece there and to put pressure on the opposition as well. And it gave them just kind of, that edge really up front. Then also just in open play, they looked the better of the two teams. Very incisive on their attacks, really nice alignment. They, identification of space, and then the exploitation of that space as well was really good. And now that they're into a quarterfinal, the Bulls are coming. The Bulls are a tough team, but it's going to be at Franklin's Gardens again. So it means that Northampton, they got to be thinking, backing themselves, that they're potentially now they're into a semi-final. And once, if they do that, once you get to the semi-final stage, then you've got to start thinking that, you've got a chance to win the trophy. Even though most people right now would say, Northampton, they shouldn't even be in the conversation to win the trophy. But once a team gets into that semi-final, if you discount them, there's a big potential you're going to have egg on your face, because teams don't get to semi-finals, by pure luck. There has to be something behind it as well, because you don't just luckily, get out of your pool and then luckily get through a round of 16 and luckily get through a quarter-final. It might happen, that you get to the semi-final and you come against a better team, but that's no shame on them. But right now, they've got that chance, even getting to a semi-final, for a Northampton team who, last year finished rock bottom in the pool. At least they finished with no wins in the pool stages, flopped out of Europe. And to turn that around in a season just shows what can be done. And even if the quarterfinal is as far as they go, it's still a major step forward for a team who haven't been competitive at this level for many, many years. I remember back in the days when these two teams that played today were the cream of European rugby, and they had titanic clashes between each other as well. Today, maybe not as titanic, but still, I think we're seeing two teams who, over maybe the next 5 or 6 years, are working their way back up to be at that level again. And this is, whatever happens with Northampton this year, it's definitely a step in the right direction for them.